as little time as possible, but in the most thorough way, I want to talk about the most overlooked part of this entire process that stresses everyone without fail, and it's so avoidable, especially in the pre-approval stages. If you do due diligence there, you will be flying by the time we have an official commitment letter and we're going through the final conditions. So one thing just to remember is that to get a pre-approval, it's all conditional on the actual property. And also once they look at your documents through due diligence. Now, when I ask for documents, I know a lot of how they underwrite your file, so we can go in with certain degree of confidence that we're going to be okay. But the more documents you supply to me, the more I can kind of be the first line of defense, and then of course the lender will look at it. So really, really important, especially if we've already removed subjects and it's just about getting final conditions approved before the mortgage funds are advanced through your lawyer's office. This is the part that really we got to focus on. And although we usually have a 1 or 2 or even 3 months to do this, sooner the better. But first thing is number one, just before we get into the actual documents, what they look like, etc., just so you know, there's 50 billion annually that's in money laundering. So the lenders are going to be extremely picky about the documents that we send them, and they always want in their preferred format. Listen, a lot of it is going to be, I agree with you, it's going to be excessive. It's going to be even stupid, but we just have to roll with it. Rules of the game. Now, that's the number one thing. Just when you do get a little frustrated because they've revised the document or sent it back, just know that it's part of the game, so we'll do our best to avoid that. Secondly, I get this without fail from every single person. Hey, Paul, is the lender picking on me? Do they think I'm some kind of criminal? And the answer is, well, to some degree, yes, because of the first point, they have to do a crazy amount of due diligence, which, again, very avoidable as far as the stress around that if we just do things correctly the first time. So they're not picking on you. They put the same amount of scrutiny with anyone. And yes, again, it's kind of ridiculous. But again, it's not just you, it's how the game goes, right? Remember, this is a mortgage. They're lending you like hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, right? They need to be super aware of it. And yeah, third point is like, look, let's just be extra thorough, right? I see so many examples of people scrambling last minute or surprises coming up because they didn't take the time to go through this process at the beginning, and it's very avoidable. So again, let's get into some of the documents that you're probably going to see on an Excel document, actually. There's an Excel doc which I'll show you after this that has a lot of the conditions. But yeah, so getting into it, 3 kinds of documents that they will want. They want to make sure that your income is confirmed properly. Of course, the property documents are very important. Whether you actually own property now, they'll want to get some documents around that. And of course, when you're buying a property, they'll want to get documents around that property, which we won't know until you've put a live offer in and we have those documents, right? Until it's an accepted offer. Last one, just personal documents. There's some certain things there that are very important that could disqualify you from the mortgage. So number one, yeah, if you're an employee, basically, letter of employment is really important. There's a very specific format. It usually has to say there's guaranteed hours. They're very strict about that. It has to be past the 90-day probation period. So click on these templates. You can see exactly how it should look, and I'm sure your employer will have another route around how they do it. But as long as they hit on the key points, start date, it's dated, guaranteed hours, says your full time, says your rate, says your salary, includes bonuses, etc. Very, very important. Standard pay stubs. Remember, they have to be fresh, so they have to be 30 days from when we remove subjects, or if you're refinancing, when we send in the application. And even if this is in the future, send this now so I can make sure that what you're paid is what you say you're paid, and it's counted in the way they want to see it. Even though might have to resend things in the future, especially even the letter of employment, let's get them in early in the pre-approval stages, make sure that or at least everything's in line, and then we just refresh them later on. Notice of assessments in T4s if you're an employee, very important. If you can't access your NOA, here's a link on how to do that. There are some special programs too that can send you NOAs through Express. It's about $30. This is if it's caught up in the mail or the CRAs being notoriously slow, which they usually are. Things we can talk about. If you're a business owner, If you're actually incorporated, we need this. Now, with a business owner, they're going to average out your last 2 years of T1 average, right? So number one, let's say, we're about to claim, 2020 taxes. So you've got 2018, 2019. We'll take the average of those two. And by the way, if 2020 was a bad year, then we want to probably keep showing just the average of 2018 and 2019. At a certain point, lenders will say we got to see 2020. So if you're right at the threshold around February till April or even May, then we might have a grace period. But yeah, generally want to average out 2 years worth of income. And this is income you claim, by the way. So that's something we can talk about. If you don't claim a lot of income, there's special programs for that. But anyways, T1s are very important. And your notice of assessment will show no taxes are owed. If, let's say, you have your 2019 notice of assessment that said you owe $10,000 in taxes, you haven't got your 2020 assessment yet, what you can do, I talked about this sort of third-party service, but also there is a way for you to go on your statement of accounts online, and that's where it can actually show that you don't owe any taxes, right? So anyways, T1s, by the way, are these large documents that, especially if you have rental income as well, you may even get one as an employee. It's kind of like income beyond that's through self-employed, right? And just make sure T1s are prepared by accountants, obviously. And then, again, this statement of accounts is pretty important, again, to show that no taxes are owed. And this is if it's over $2,000 for them. If you owe like $1,000, it's not a big deal. But if you owe any taxes, again, statement of accounts, you click on that link, boom, it'll show, that you don't owe anything, which is important. Okay, that's mainly income confirmation. Property documents. So if you own a property, we need this. Obviously, if you're in a strata, there's going to be a Form B that talks about home insurance. If you have home insurance in a detached property, make sure you have a copy of, your home insurance, essentially. If you still have a mortgage on existing properties, we need a mortgage statement within 30 days, please. If you have an investment property with actual tenants and they're paying X amount of rent, we need the RTB agreement. If you're in a strata, there's things like your last 2 years of annual general meetings are needed. Sometimes it's strata minutes. It depends. Just have those handy. And if you're refinancing, usually we have to check title to make sure there's no liens on your property, et cetera, et cetera. Also, if you own property very recently but you sold it, the lender might still want to see a title proof you don't live there anymore and are liable. So something I'll bring up if need be. One thing about mortgage statements is they got to show your property address and your name. If they're just a random mortgage statement, then show your name or the address. They'll say, hey, it could be anyone's mortgage statement, right? And sort of the same thing with your bank statements too, by the way. We'll get to those kind of in a sec, but those have to be very, very clear. So that's the property. And then, if you're buying a place, these are the things like that your realtor will send to me, right? All examples that just make sure you hold them accountable to send those to you. And obviously, if you're moving into a place that has a tenant, then the lender wants to make sure that tenant isn't giving the seller any problems on moving out, so there has to be a notice to vacate. Other property docs right here, right? So if you're in a holding corporation, those are rare. We need this. Construction mortgages are very specific and complicated, but those are some documents that are usually needed there. And again, the PDS at the top, second bullet point, is for BC only. I mean, I don't think Ontario has that or any other provinces. Again, this is all mainly BC docs I'm looking at. I mean, it's pretty standard across the board, but there'll be some nuances between provinces, but this is obviously for BC. Personal docs. Most important thing that causes people the most grief are your down payment confirmation. So literally, the lender wants to see a paper trail. Remember, they're going to assume you're a money launderer until proven innocent. So if you have, let's say, $100,000 of down payment and your property's worth $1 million, right? Or actually, that wouldn't work because you need 20% down payment for $1 million. So let's say it's you have $100,000 down, and then you have $900,000 property. So it's going to be $100,000 we've got to show paper trail for, but also they want to see your closing costs are covered, and they're just going to put a rule of thumb of 1.5% of the property value. right? So 1.5% of 9,000, let's say it's approximately, call it, just over, call it, 13 to 14 grand, right? So we have like your 100,000 plus 14,000. 114,000 needs to be shown the last 90 days. Now, if it's a gift, there's going to be a gift letter, of course. Now, if it's just coming from like your bank statements or your investment accounts, however you cut up the 114,000, they want to see that, right? So I've got some screenshots of exactly like how you should take a screenshot of your bank. You got to make sure your name's visible and it's very clear of the transactions. And this is 90 days from when we remove subjects. If you remove subjects on, let's say March the 1st, then we need to look at statements from all of February, all of January, and all of December. That's 90 days up until the day we remove subjects, right? And you just got to show, they just have to see in the bank account, kind of like the money's there, the last 90 days, it's been in your account, right? It didn't just come up out of nowhere. So yeah, just really be diligent on saying those bank accounts. First of all, in the early days, so I can make sure that there's nothing fishy about how things look in your account. And then yes, obviously you might have to send those again in the future, but it's just screenshots, not hard, but stay organized with that, really important. One thing that lenders are picky about as well is if they see in those bank statements that you had over $2,000 deposited and it's not from your payroll or something clearly from your business, then they're like, oh, like, where'd you get $2,000? Like, was it from, what was it from? Was it from something that's illegal? How do people just end up getting a bulk payments of that much money? I know, it's kind of ridiculous, but let's say you got an e-transfer from a friend, or you transferred the $2,000 from another account from another bank, let's say, or you like liquidated a stock. They got to see the source of where that came from. So if it's a check from a friend or from something else, great. We need a copy of the check. You can get that at the bank, hopefully online as well, but it might have to be the bank, which is a pain in the ass, I know, but it's got to be done. Now, bank statements. So yeah, if you got an e-transfer, there's usually a part to show that came into your account. In an extreme example, they'll want to see it leaving your friend's account, so they'll have to show an example of it leaving their account. Which is annoying, but needs to be done sometimes. And just again, and if it's just from another bank account, like your business account to your personal, just show it leaving, right, on a certain date, and that has to match up with the date it was deposited in the new account. So these are things they're picky on. So as you're sending bank statements, scan your bank statements. Be like, is there anything that was deposited over $2,000 that's not my salary? Right? Government ID, pretty basic. Passport's fine too, just something that's official. If you are divorced, then they'll want to see a copy, certificate of a divorce. And look, especially if there's any spousal or child support that you owe, then that's really important to be very upfront with me, because if they catch that, they could totally kill a deal and give you a lot of stress. Especially if you have a past bankruptcy, you should have a discharge statement to send me, and please disclose that. And yeah, they want to know who your solicitor/notary is. So who's your real estate lawyer who's going to close the transaction, right? So they want to know that information ASAP, because the second we get checked off on all these documents, guess what? They get instructed and they're allowed to actually create the transaction, make sure that, yeah, you get you become a new property owner. So how to submit documents? You'll probably get an email from me. Number one, to keep things as seamless as possible, is to CC my teammate Mickey. That's her email. She'll usually be on CC. You can send them to me as well, but make sure she is on CC. Or rather, I'd rather you send it to her and CC me, because she's the one that actually works with things. I mean, sometimes people will send documents one at a time with one email at a time. It just creates extra work for us, and it means I'm going to be slow in responding to you. So if you can, bulk things as much as possible to one email and make sure they're clearly sent to us. And ideally, the documents should also be labeled so we know what they are. Look, with documents, please make sure they're in PDF. If you take photos of something, I get it. But there is a cool app that you can actually take a photo of it and it turns it exactly into a PDF in the moment. That's actually going to save you time and save us time. So if possible, please do that. If not, all good. We'll convert it for you. But again, this is about speed. And if you want speed from us, we expect, you to make things easier for us, right? Or else we're going to be slow. So it's whatever you send out, you get, right? Bank statements, again, I talked about those, have the name visible and the screenshot account number. If it only shows your account number, then you should have another screenshot that shows your name next to the account number, right, at your home screen. So they want to make sure everything's associated. We talked about everything being within 30 days, especially letters of employment, pay stubs, etc. And when we're scanning printed documents, when you send me like a commitment letter that's signed, yes, you might only have to sign page 2 and 5, but I need to see everything scanned at once. So you basically have to scan the pages that don't have any wet ink signature. But it just makes it easier to have the whole thing complete. So just something for you to keep in mind when you scan or take photos or use the cool app TurboScan. And yeah, that's kind of it for documents. I know I zipped through it. You're gonna get a copy of this. And remember, the way we're tracking this is you're gonna have this document here where, again, we're probably gonna be in the stage where we remove subjects. Oh, well, first of all, we do as much as we can right up here for the pre-approval, so we can safely remove subjects. I vetted your file. And then things get accepted, and then let's say you now have a commitment letter. These are the conditions, terms. Remember so someone just got approved from Scotiabank here, but obviously it says that they have to get certain things approved, right? So these are all certain things that need to be actually sent to them. So remember, these are all conditions that until they're satisfied, the lawyer will not be instructed, right? So just keep in mind that these are some things that you need to be very wary of, and we have to get done as soon as possible. So with that, thanks for your time.